I still remember the day, the moment I decided I'm going to lock in on my terminal and make it the ultimate setup known to mankind.
The ultimate setup known to mankind.
It was a sleepy afternoon at work after lunch and our CTO was presenting the SSH Heartbleed bug. Anyone old enough to remember this one? I was an absolute junior back then. The CTO wanted to show us how the bug is exploited, so he popped his terminal up, which already looked totally different than mine, with smooth colors and lots of indications of different things I did not understand. It looked like a pilot's dashboard and I was amazed and lost complete focus in his words. I was tunnel visioned and watched every terminal move he made. Every command, every split, every motion. It looked like black magic. Not only he could do things I couldn't, he did it with such speed and brushed it off like his brain wasn't even registering the intent. It was intuitive and it felt like muscle memory. Right there and then, I knew I was going to spend the next week figuring out my setup to make it as beautiful and quick and smooth like his. Little did I know, this week turned into months and then years and a decade later, a YouTube channel, based on my pure and quite strange affinity to computer terminals. So in this video, we're building up from this to this, a powerhouse with utilities, multiplexing, cool tricks and everything I built and improved for years. Let's get into it. This is where I started. It's where most users start. A bad looking terminal, zero features or helpful functionality. Configuration through a GUI window, no way to save settings in code, and when you need another window, just pop another one. So our first stepping stone is a solid terminal emulator. This is an app that, well, emulates a terminal that you'd normally have plugged into a server like the good old days.
Okay.
My suggestion is going with Ghosty, especially if you're running on a Mac, but not only. Created by the founder of HashiCorp and a super interesting person to follow, Mitchell Hashimoto decided to write it in Zig just for fun. Like other projects you'll see in this video, I made a video dedicated to Ghosty, which you can find up here. To be honest, I find it on par with Westterm and I use both intermittently. No good reason. You can pick either or a bunch of others. There's a long list of available options to you. Once you have Ghosty or another option installed, it's going to look like this. Not super fancy, but a little more palatable and easy on the eyes. The nice thing about Ghosty is that you can rather quickly set yourself up with a config that suits your style, and it would usually include a handful of lines. This is what I use. That's it. The most important line on this configuration is actually the first one. Catpuccin is my style of choice for everything. I'll expand on that in a bit, but for now let's just apply this new config, making sure it's present on home/.config/ghosty holding the original name config. A simple Ghosty config update and there we have it. Now, just to be clear, because I'm getting asked this a lot, while my Ghosty settings here have a blurry part transparent background, and so are most of my videos, I don't actually use that when I work. I like solid backgrounds, hopefully full screen, focusing on the task at hand, and nothing else. With that out of the way, here's my Westterm config. You'll notice it's also running Catpuccin as a color scheme. This file, as well as any other config you'll see throughout this video, are all on my github.files repo. Another piece of information to offload is my font. I run JetBrains Mono. I've been doing that for years, tried a bunch of others, and this was the only one that stuck. Not surprising coming from a NeoVim user, but it's funny to think the one JetBrains product I swear by is their open source font. To me, it's perfect. Holds the ligatures, support all languages, feels perfect for reading, writing, and reviewing. I just love it. Oh, and as I mentioned, it's open source and free to use. So, it's time. This is one of those things that you may have not expected in a terminal setup video, but I like it so much I started using Catpuccin palette of colors everywhere. Not only code and thumbnails, but documents, Christmas cards, and my daughter's birthday invitations. As advertised, it really is soothing. It has gotten so popular over the last few years that you can literally find it on anything. Just look at this massive, endless list of over 430 ports. Even AI companies jumped in and other tools you'd never expect to build a style option into their utility or programming language. I mean, even YouTube and their music app have a Catpuccin option. Okay, enough with style options. Time for the real deal, the shell. Now this one needs a disclaimer. What I'm showing here is not for everyone. Not because it's crazy or hard or I don't know what. It's different. My choice of shell is Nushell, which if I wouldn't have to work with all these JSONs and YAMLs, some databases and other data structures, I might not even try to switch. That said, it's a great choice even if you're not that kind of an engineer. The one major reason not to go down the Nushell road is the fact that it's not POSIX compatible, which means many familiar commands won't work as you expect them to. The videos about Nushell end-to-end are on my channel, covering pros and cons and everything you want to know, but let me give you the gist of it just by showing it off. I'm taking a quick break for a word from today's sponsor. Tired of hitting walls with your hosting platform, artificial limits, surprise bills, and juggling 5 different services just to deploy your app? It's time to break free. Meet Sevalla, the all-in-one trickery-free platform as a service from the infrastructure experts at Kinsta. They combine the best features of modern platforms into one seamless experience. With Sevalla, you get unlimited collaborators and unlimited parallel builds. Deploy your apps, databases, and static sites on a global network powered by Google Kubernetes Engine and Cloudflare. There are no fixed plans, just transparent, usage-based pricing. You only pay for what you use. It's the developer experience you love with the enterprise-grade security and performance you need. Stop compromising and start building. Experience the Heroku successor that's built for today's development teams. Visit sevalla.com to deploy your first application for free. That's svalla.com. You also get $50 worth of credit to start and test the platform, so make sure you don't miss that. And now, back to the video. To make the first point clear, let me print running processes. PS brings back whatever data PS sends, but in a table. And that's what Nushell is all about, structuring data. If you're wondering, here's a result of LS. If I pop over to ZSH, many users' default choice, PS would look like so. But looks isn't everything, right? It's the inner beauty that you should care about. Well, Nushell comes with a bunch of utilities communicating using pipes, so I can filter processes with more than 10 CPU usage and sort the list based on that number. Cool, right? I can also filter by other columns, like our running status, or just print everything but sort it by memory and maybe even reverse the result so it's easier to read from the bottom. If you're a fan of CSVs or want to translate any columnar structure, with Nushell it's as easy as 2 and a format, like CSV. Want a JSON? Same trick. Most of you would think this raw result could be piped to something like JQ for parsing and maybe further queries. With Nushell, you don't have to. Especially with these ad hoc queries you run locally. Use the save utility to save the JSON into a file, then the open command prints the structure into a flat table from which you can run all the filtering, sorting, and selecting you've seen earlier. But this is just a JSON file. What about a real table structure? Maybe a database? Check this out. The same open command can open my local SQLite, and a QueryDB utility can take an SQL statement if you want to go raw. Results are then sent in the same familiar structure. Want the schema? Just pipe over to columns. Nu is a rich language that comes with a lot of utilities, which some people rightfully commenting it's a bit over the top and doesn't sit well with the Unix philosophy where each program runs a very specific task. I think it's a lifesaver when dealing with mentioned formats and small data structures. So my one tip would be to give it a try, even as a sidekick to your ZSH or Bash. Oh, and yeah, there's also Fish, another modern shell, also not following POSIX, but with some great features. To keep this video short, I'll leave you with the video I made about it up here. Since my choice in the past year has been and stays Nushell, I won't bring up the others. What I must have though on my shell, regardless of which one I use, is VI mode. If you haven't heard of it, VI mode is simply a way to go into Vim-like normal mode and use Vim motions to make changes to your shell commands. It's usually set with set-o VI on Bash compatible shells. To show how it works, there's a long ECR liner. It has an AWS command piped to a Docker login. Quite a long command, and I want to edit something in the back, something like the account ID or the region. While I can use my errors like most people, this is far from efficient. Escape takes me into normal mode. In my shell, this is represented by the cursor changing to underscore. Now I can BBB to jump backwards, 0 to go all the way to the beginning with one stroke, or $sign to jump to the end. W jumps words forward, and just as you would in Vim, E works the same way but jumping to the end of words. But these are simple. What if I want to cut this long command at the pipe sign? Well, F or Shift F to find backwards, the pipe sign jumps right there. Let's Shift D to remove everything past the cursor till the end of this line. Now I can DW to delete a word, or regret and undo myself with U. You gotta admit, this is super useful. There's a bunch of additional motions like Shift W, yanking and pasting, and more and more. I think any terminal user should be aware of VI mode and take advantage of it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to step out of the shell and replicate it using a multiplexer. Remember the story from the intro, seeing my mentor splitting up his screen without even thinking about it? This was Tmux. Just in case you're unaware, Tmux is a terminal multiplexer, meaning a utility that allows you to split the screen as many times as you like, but also detach and attach to the session, create other sessions, etc, etc. One disclaimer though, this isn't a Tmux video. I won't go into what the prefix is and most key bindings. I have a bunch of videos on that, so before you go on the offense in the comments, just keep that in mind, then go all out in the comments. If you just install and run Tmux, you'll see this terrible green line with some inexplicable signs, but we're about to fix that. You can split the window creating horizontal or vertical splits, or as Tmux calls them, panes. You can create an entirely new window. See the number 2 on top, marking a new window with a star indicating that's where we're at. And then we can switch back and forth between them. Panes can be resized as much as you like to suit the workspace, each running an independent shell process of its own. Remember my beloved Kubernetes? That's one of the few plugins I run on my Tmux config that you can find on my .files. You just add it to your list and run tpm. Also, install tpm if you haven't to manage plugins with ease. As you may have noticed, I made quite a few modifications and additions, but when you run the Kubernetes, it's going to look more or less like so. Already miles better. New windows are marked nice with a color indicating the current focus. You have a visible session name, nerd phone icons with current directory and more. But to me, this wasn't enough, so I built a couple of plugins to extend my enjoyment of Tmux. The first is the ability to move between sessions. You see, Tmux gives you the panes and windows, but you're also running inside a Tmux session, and there is no reason why you shouldn't run multiple sessions, or different workspaces if you will. So I have Tmux Session X, a mildly popular, can you say that? Tmux plugin that pops a floating window with a fuzzy searcher, helping you switch sessions, rename, organize, and more. And unfortunately, I don't have the capacity to maintain it, and while I still use it daily, you should also check out Sesh by Josh Medeski that does the same and far more. Another huge Tmux selling point is its history manager. Let's see URL, a long script to see it. Prefix and square brackets puts you in history mode, where you can scroll up and down, visually select text, copy, find, and later even paste it back into the terminal or other programs. Now, my other plugin that I built after Session X is Floats, a floating window with a persistent shell that also switches the path based on the location from where you called it. It's something a huge Tmux alternative called Zellige has, and I had to port it back to Tmux, so there it is. There's a bunch of key bindings and options on top, which to be honest, I rarely use, but many great collaborators have added and contributed. So if you want, we'd love to have your help there. Lastly, for Tmux, you can detach from the server altogether, going back to your shell, which is a great position to mention Zellige again, Tmux's biggest rival. It's modern, built in Rust, comes with lots of cool features, and most importantly, in my opinion, is its philosophy. It's self-explanatory. Everything comes with an options bar that has the key bindings laid in front of you. Whether it's a new window, or as Zellige calls them tabs, a split or a session, Zellige is another solid option for those who want it. I like Tmux better for many reasons, and it has always been my first choice. And before we leave the world of multiplexing, it's important to stress that pretty much every terminal you use comes with its own native option. Here's Western CLI splitting a pane. It's not my personal favorite. I don't know how to move around splits, zoom in and out, and create windows. This could be lack of familiarity, but having Tmux or Zellige, for that matter, removes the friction altogether. It doesn't matter if I run Western or Ghosty or whatever terminal that my new Cloud VPS has. Tmux is always there, ready for me. Back in Tmux, let's talk about the shell prompt. You know, those signs you kept seeing on the right-hand side of the command line row? My preference is Starship. You may be familiar with Oh My ZSH, by far the most popular option when it comes to Z shell, and then there's Power Level 10K, which is specifically a ZSH theme helping you with the prompt options with different styles and visuals. I used both for a long while, I mean years, and when I found Starship, the modern alternative, it felt like I was moving from a huge bloat to a slick, smooth, easy to use prompt. As with the rest, I made a Starship video, which is quite old by now, but it covers the key points regardless, so let's take a look. Starship comes with a simple toml config file with different plugins and options. I have mine set like so, with Capuchin Mocha obviously, having everything set in the right side of the screen. I like seeing my Git status, sometimes the AWS context as well as Kubernetes, and since most of my work is in Go, there's also a Golang little add-on here with a gopher indicating the project's language. Here's a project I'm working on with the little blue gopher on the side, next to the branch name. If I add a new untracked file, it'll indicate that immediately. If I turn on the Kubernetes add-on, there's my current context, and you can guess why it's mostly turned off. With AWS, Starship looks at the profile environment variable, and with its existence adds a profile name and a region, which is crucial when running a multi-region environment. There's loads of other options. You can show battery status and other envars that you care about. Git goes down to the level of commit message. You can see an infinite amount of languages, your IP address, username, and more and more and more. Now, every utility I use starts with a command and usually a bunch of subcommands options with it. A famous one is kubectl. When I tab for completion, you may have seen this beautiful colored list with a description and explanations. This goes further down the tree with options. It works with others. The Go CLI, for example, prints its own list of options, and all of these are courtesy of Carapace, a multi-shell completion library supporting a huge list of tools and every possible shell in existence. I found it by mistake, and it has been an important part of my workflow ever since. Next are a few utilities I use a lot, and while Nushell fills my LS needs, ESA and its predecessor, EXA, have been with me for years. They're just a better LS that also has a tree functionality, the ability to shoot raw data or color-coded results with information you're used to see in the standard ls-la. But then again, with Nushell, most of it is already taken care of for me. What I do use a lot, however, and it's been on my videos since ever, is my CX snippet, which is basically cd into a path and then ls-l. In the past, it was ESA, but then switching to Nushell, I went with its native result. This allows me to CX into folders and then change path along with seeing the contents. Now, this is a special one. This is FZF, the most popular fuzzy finder on GitHub. Yes, I made a video about it, it's on the channel, blah blah, but what I do want to say is it's the base for many utilities. Any setup can and should enjoy FZF. Even my super niche Tmux plugin that runs sessions is using it. Just make sure you have it. It's also extremely useful as a standalone utility. If you send a list of anything to FZF, you get a fuzzy searchable list. In this instance, we're not doing anything with the result but print it. But this can be used to send to an editor or as a result in any context of any script. Now, before we part ways, a few major ones. Honestly, utilities I'd never skip when setting my workspace. Zoxide, which I mentioned earlier, is one of these. Zoxide lets you jump to paths on your machine by giving it a name or a partial name. It keeps a database of visited paths, how many times you visited, and how often, then it ranks them based on that metric. You can also use AI to send multiple results to FZF. When you pick one, it sends you there. Zoxide comes with CLI options ready to be integrated into scripts, which I have integrated into both my Tmux plugins. I don't think it would be an exaggeration saying Zoxide is probably the most important CLI I've ever used. Considering the aggregated amount of time saved searching for paths, it's second to none. And then, lastly, there's Atuin. Since I made a bunch of videos and posts on Atuin, I'll put it simply, because it's simple and genius. It's a history manager built with a fuzzy finder that's persistent using a local database, and you can go crazy by syncing your history to other machines. All these long one-liners you can never remember, that's what it's for. It gets better. Atuin has a script utility that lets you bake PaaS scripts into it and then call them, turning them into interactive automation snippets always available to you. And with Atuin, we conclude the list of core essentials that come with my terminal setup. Now that your terminal is locked in, if you want to make full use of the speed, I suggest improving your Vim motions and making sure that VI mode isn't just there for nothing. Click this video, give me 20 minutes, and I'll show you everything there is to know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.